Thursday, August 22nd edition of the Sportsline Podcast here on our CHCH media platform. I'm Bubba O'Neil. Hey, many of you have recently messaged me and said that our podcast is becoming part of your daily routine, and we certainly appreciate that. Folks, as you know, we've chatted with many outstanding media members from Southern Ontario who have so much to offer. Yet at times in this congested and competitive landscape, some of those broadcasters have become casualties of a downsizing media business.
This frequency, 900 on the AM dial. The call letters CHML. We are 900 CHML. Listen anywhere you go on the iHeartRadio app.
We have some important news to share with you. Today, after decades of serving the great city of Hamilton, we want to inform you that we will be closing 900 CHML. We want to express our gratitude to each and every one of you in the community, and most importantly, our advertisers and our listeners. You are the cornerstone of our station's legacy. Thank you.
Certainly not a great day 7 days ago in our media landscape, especially right here in Hamilton. We bring in Rick Zamperin, who unfortunately was, I figure, a keystone, a part of that station that we listened to for so long. Rick, thank you for coming in. I know this can't be easy. Yeah. What's up, first of all?
What's up? A lot is up, to be honest. Over the last week, there's been a range of emotions in terms of everything under the sun, from, a measure of satisfaction on what we achieved for nearly 97 years. And there was many more, incredible broadcasters before me. And I can name a few of them, including, Norm Marshall, who you guys at CH know quite well, Perce Allen, Bob Bertina, Bob Hooper, Paul Tipple, Jeff Story. The list goes on and on. Bill Sturrup. And, I think the foundation that they set long ago really made it easier for broadcasters like me to kind of continue their story and carry the torch and, tell the stories of Hamilton and Hamiltonians and relaying the information that mattered to our listeners for eons. And we really got, a lot of feedback from our listeners, good, bad, and otherwise, in terms of our coverage and the things that we focused on and, the issues we talked about. And maybe there was a differing of opinion sometimes, but I think Hamilton always appreciated that CHML was there to kind of bring the stories about them to them. So, it's been a roller coaster of a week emotionally, for sure.
I'm sure it has been. I'm sure you've heard from so many people.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, what's happening with this Sportsline podcast and people saying, I find I'm listening to you more on a daily basis now.
Yeah.
I mean, and 900 CHML was uber that.
Right.
That is a part of people's lives for nearly a century.
Yeah, I think it became habitual for, many radio listeners, whether it's here in Hamilton or other cities. You get into the habit of, connecting with the announcers who are on the radio station. You want to hear their opinions on certain topics or stories, but you also want the information of what's happening in your community. And right now, I think there's a void in terms of, local news coverage from a radio standpoint. CH does a great job of covering the local issues. Hamilton Spectator is there as well to, give people the information and the knowledge that they'll require to get on with their day. Not having that in the immediacy of radio, I think, is going to be a big chasm in the city.
I think you extend it beyond that, too, because all those things that you did in terms of your titles at CHML, you were a radio personality.
Right.
And you yourself become, as I said, not only the newscast becomes a part of someone's life, you yourself, whether you've met the people or not.
Yeah.
I think we always think of it as on our side, but look on the other side, and people feel like they know you, and you become part of people's lives.
It's all about companionship, and I mean, TV's the same, and print is the same. As you get to know your listeners from a certain standpoint, because you're relaying a news story or you're talking about a hot topic in town, and you might get an email or something on social media or even a handwritten letter, which still happened, and either thanking you or challenging you on your opinion or questioning what's next or what's going to happen with this topic. And that connection, that companionship, goes back decades, right? This station was around for nearly 100 years, and I think we made a big impact on people's lives, whether it was an emergency big snowstorm, school closures, or something happening on the 403 or the link, or the school board had a major controversy, or something important was happening at City Hall, we got to tell those stories, and it was fun to do that for at least personally, almost 24 years.
You had a habit of waking up at 3:30 in the morning, doing the morning show.
Nasty habit,
but it's part of your routine, right? That's your job, and that's what you love to do. Mm-hmm. 7 days ago, when you woke up at that time and went into work, was it just a normal day?
It was, an absolutely normal day. It was, August 14th. We had planned a show. I hosted the show, 5:30 to 9. It was, I thought, a really good show with great local content. Our newscasters were on point. Everything. I mean, it was just a normal kind of day. And, after the show, I get called into the office and got told that not only am I, no longer a part of CHML, CHML is no longer. They're shutting the lights out. And, that to me was a huge shock in terms of not necessarily what that meant for my future, because I kind of already knew, my life would change, but for Hamilton, that's going to leave a big void, as I said earlier, in terms of, how are people going to get their information when, they're stuck in that traffic jam, or, they're driving around, or they're at home listening to the radio and thinking, well, how does this impact me? And so that's going to be, unfortunately, a new reality for many in Hamilton. But yeah, it was just a normal day. We knew the company was, was well reported, was in, some financial strife, like many media companies these days.
The parent company.
The parent company,
yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Like other companies, it's a tough go, especially post-pandemic, in terms of ad revenue, ad dollars, right? The Metas and the Googles of the world have kind of carved into that. But never in my wildest imagination would I have thought that CHML would close. I mean, that was the furthest thing from anyone's minds in that radio station. And it was gone like that.
Was there a sign? Was there any, was it your boss that told you? Was it someone from Chorus?
Yeah, it was basically my manager and an HR individual who, that's just kind of the process where, they bring you into an office and tell you, here's your package. This is what's happening today. But I did not expect them to say the station's shutting down immediately. And it was 2.5 hours later where it was just static. They pulled the plug and that was it. And again, it was, shocking, disappointing, disheveling. I mean, you name it, all those emotions over the last week especially, but it's, certainly that morning I thought, wow, that's unbelievable.
What was unbelievable for me was what happened in the series, and I think you know about this, what happened with me and one of your colleagues, Scott Radley, being at Tiger Cats practice and covering that for the Spectator as he does. Yeah. And me giving him a call because producer, CHML, had booked me to be his guest at 7:15 at p.m. For his show. And I hadn't gotten back to his producer, but around 11:30-ish, I had called Scott to say, hey, I'm good, I'll be there, because it works well with the timing for me.
Sure, yeah.
And saying to him, well, actually before that, just seconds before, as I pressed dial to him, the Twitter machine, all of a sudden, I don't know, we've all seen this now, this blank message with a letterhead on Twitter, and I know it's not good news. And I see 900 CHML, and I read it, and I'm flabbergasted. I, like yourself, obviously even closer, I can't believe it. I'm like, how long has this station been around for? They are a key cog, as we are 70 years here at CHCH. The Spectator, 150 years?
Yeah.
You guys approaching 100 years. I'm floored. So I call Scott to give him my thoughts, or
what the heck's going on?
What's going on? I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. And he says to me, what?
Right.
Awkward moment.
Yes, not an unfamiliar story, because there were others who were not in the building, or perhaps not appropriately contacted by management to say this is happening today. There is, and I don't want to mention their names because I don't want to either get them in trouble or put them in an awkward situation, but there was a long-standing, and I mean long-standing CHML veteran award-winning broadcaster who received a phone call from a longtime friend, a notable individual in this community, to say, hey, I just saw this on X. What's going on? And that long-standing award-winning broadcaster had no idea that actually happened, an hour or two before, because they were not notified. And it's tragic to find out that way. I mean, it's tragic to find out anyway, but to not be included in a master announcement or whatever, however the company wanted to do it, very unfortunate.
It's extremely, I can say this because I don't work there.
Go ahead.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's so cold. And having to read that statement to Scott killed me. It ruined my day.
Yeah.
It ruined my day because I don't know. I mean, obviously, Scott and I are close, and we've talked, and he's moved on, as everyone will move on out of situations like this. But I'll never forget that as something that I can't believe I gave someone that kind of news on the fly, because he's come back and he's like you, getting ready to plan his day and write his column and then go to the ML and do his show.
Yeah.
And to be able to have that, because what was I going to do? I wasn't going to lie and just turn the conversation around. Right? It's just like,
he's your bud, you got to let him know.
I got to let him know, right? And it is just, it's cold. It's cold. Did they ever, have they even hinted at maybe a comeback or anything like that?
No.
Like, this is, to me, CHML is well listened to. There are other things that Chorus, this company, could accent / maybe even other centrals. Hamilton is a market that is big. Hamilton is a market that is growing and extending. And that's why the service that 900 CHML provided, I think, is so important. Have they said anything?
No, I mean, there's no kind of comeback plan or, this is a temporary thing. I think this is an absolute, slicing of, a heritage kind of fabric of a community kind of radio station. The company has made some moves in other markets, Edmonton, Vancouver, Kingston, probably most notably other than Hamilton. But I don't think, with all due respect to those institutions, I don't think they were as close to what CHML meant to this community as they did to theirs. But I know, obviously, individuals were impacted and those communities were impacted, but there's no kind of, let's pause for a year and then, bring it back. I know there has been a discussion, and I can say this factually because I know people have talked to me about it, about, is there a community group that could gather resources together to bring it back? And, I would certainly listen to that, no doubt about it, because there are some major players kind of thinking of that. How close or how serious they are, I have no idea. But I love that they're having that conversation because it proves to me, and I think everyone, that, this station meant something to a lot of people in this community, and not having it around is a void. I was just driving here today, and I always kind of listen to the station as well as a variety of other radio stations to see what they were doing, and not having that option to go to 900 is just killing me because it hurts that it's not there.
What is the future of radio at this point? This is like you said, Hamilton obviously affected. We could go on and on. I mean, even going further back a couple of years ago, TSN, the Sports Network, Hamilton, CKOC, which is just strangely made a comeback here, but for they were lights out for a while. Is there a future for radio? I think it's a necessity.
Yeah.
Do you think so?
I think so. I think it is. I think it's one of those mediums that, especially in times of crisis or an emergency, think about what you would have done without radio during the 2003 blackout. And I know TV stations kind of covered it extensively. Newspapers did a great job, but radio is so easily pivotable in terms of having reporters everywhere, being able to tell different stories at a moment's notice, and covering a story like I don't think other mediums can because of the immediacy of it, and the liquidity of reporters stationed around whatever the situation is. I think there's a place for it. I think they have to figure out how, from a dollars and cents standpoint, how it can work, because let's not forget, radio is free. You can tune into any radio station around the world for free. Go on the internet, go in your car, it's there. You do not have to pay. There are radio stations or radio platforms where you do have to pay to get, that subscription. But I still see it as a viable option. They just have to, and I don't have the answer, but they have to figure out how to make revenue and profit from the platform that we currently have.
We have electric cars right now, don't even have AM stations in them anymore.
Yeah.
But is there a way, and this is something I thought of, there are other Chorus stations on FM that couldn't have been doing as well as 900 CHML was doing it. Like, what is it? Was that an option? Like, could you not just take all? This is again just me. I'm a TV guy asking a radio guy question, so that's why I ask you this. Could you not just take all those AM stations and put them on radio, or put them on FM for the FM stations that aren't doing well? Put it that way.
Yeah. In short, yes. Yeah. And actually, that did happen with the company that actually in Calgary, CHQR, another heritage station in Calgary. They broadcast Calgary Stampeders games and have so for years. One of the news kind of talk leader of that city. There was a plan, and they actually executed this, to put the whatever was on AM on the FM in Calgary. And for a while, they kind of test drove it and figured out it did not work because, again, the ad dollars, no matter whether you're on AM or FM, were just not there. So, yes, it's possible the CRTC has to be in on that conversation. They have to basically approve this kind of move. We had talked about it, to be honest, at CHML for years, and maybe it was a pipe dream, but there are other FM stations across the dial that don't have the heritage or the luster or the experience that CHML had. The big difference between what we did at ML and really any other FM station is the amount of resources it does take to do it right. So we had a robust newsroom, even, for 2024. We had, a plan to cover everything that was important to our community, and that costs a lot of money in terms of, paying personnel to do so. Yeah, you can have 3 people do it, but they're not going to cover the city like 8 or 12 would. So having different talk show hosts throughout the day, having multiple reporters, report on situations, having a digital kind of, individual that can, enhance and improve the website and, tell stories on digital, that was all part of what we did. And, you look at, FM stations, and they might have a couple of announcers, maybe 3, and a lot of them are simulcasting, their middays or maybe even afternoons. It's a lot less expensive from a manpower standpoint to operate an FM station than an AM station. And certainly some FM stations will have that kind of manpower, but they're the giants. And I mean, there's maybe 2 or 3 of those in this country.
Just extending, what you're going through mentally, I would presume. What about your colleagues?
Yeah, I mean, the same. We actually had a lunch yesterday. The former CHMLers were kind of calling ourselves. We have a Facebook group. It's great just to talk about the old times, have a few laughs, shed a couple of tears in our beverages, and go on with the day. But it is a roller coaster because there have been people that have been at the station longer than I have, and recall going into the station and moving into the new facility because we used to be on Springer Street, and now we were on Main Street for so many years, and just talking about the old times and talking about the good times and also talking about the tough times and how we're each kind of dealing with this new reality. And there's so many different people in this building where a couple of years into their career or 30 years into their career and approaching retirement. So, and everyone has a different set of kind of emotions. Some people are irritated, some are angry, some are sad, some are really still in disbelief. And I think for me, I'm all a little bit of those things, trying to deal with the situation.
I don't know if I've told you this, but there were so many people, and on Twitter you can @ someone. Were adding at me. I don't know why me. but saying that the Tiger Cats had everything to do with this, that they had a lot to do with the fact that the 5th quarter was on your show where fans call in and they can cheer or jeer the team regarding on the results and what's going on with the team, and that there was a lack of freedom or, the fans, where are we going to speak? First things first, let me show you some visuals of Tiger Cat fans, and then just look here. Maybe you tell me what you think when you see these fans.
They look stunned and unhappy, Bubba.
Yeah, they're not happy. Not at all. I also see a lot of empty seats, dude. I mean, the passion that these people have for their football team, which is so important. And, again, one of the things that I think one of the first times I ever met you was because of a Tiger Cats sort of chat. Look at that guy. It was a Tiger Cats chat that was done on Cable 14 way, way back. And you called games. You were the play-by-play announcer of this team doing games on CHML.
Yes.
Right.
2007 to 2014. I remember the first 2 years. I thought, what did I sign up for? Because they were 3-15 both years. And I thought, oh, geez, like this team's got to get better. And eventually they did. And eventually they have. But this is, this season's a struggle for sure.
Mm-hmm. What is that when you see that? And I know you were doing the fifth quarter for so many years.
Yeah.
Again, being a sports guy, being a Hamilton guy, what's that been like for you?
Yeah, you know what? It's the easiest show I'm ever going to host because we're all reacting to something that we hold near and dear to our hearts, right? And that's the fandom that we have for this team. And I think this show, for decades, well before I was established in the chair, allowed people to share their honest opinion of what they thought, win, lose, or draw. And, the show is continuing in a different form, but it is still allowing people to kind of vent or cheer. You know, we get a lot of that when the Ticats do well and, we're going all the way and this is the secret recipe. And, we have the people in place or the coaches in place. And it's just a platform, I think, for fans to kind of, let their emotions kind of, escape their bodies, and whether it's to criticize someone or call someone to get fired, which we've had numerous times on the program this year, or really congratulate, some players on some awesome performances, which happens basically every show as well. But this show, I've always said, is for the fans, and it allows them to kind of get stuff off their chest, good, bad, or otherwise.
And you have found it important to continue that. Yeah. The legacy. I'm going to say the legacy of the fifth quarter.
Yeah, and I thought CHML is gone, unfortunately, and I don't really think it's ever coming back. But I thought if there's one thing that I can do on a number of fronts is to continue this fifth quarter. First and foremost, there's a story to be told with this team, and this is a perfect platform, I think, to offer fans a chance to chime in on what this story, what this chapter of Ticats lore is going to be all about. And so I decided, let's jump into it. I'm not the most technologically savvy guy, but I can work YouTube, and so I've created the fifth quarter show on YouTube. And after the last game, unfortunately, it wasn't a good one for the Ticats, but the response was overwhelming and continues to be. I didn't think I'd get this amount of subscribers in like a week or so, that number of views on the first kind of show. So it's made a mark, and I think it just proves that there is a need in this community to talk about the team that we love, and this is the platform to do it. So I encourage everyone to subscribe. It's I think, going to be a fun program going forward. What it looks like a year from now, I have no idea, but we're trying to make it, including starting tomorrow with the game against Winnipeg, a little bit bigger, a little bit better, and hopefully the team can be a little bit better as well.
Well, I think it's so important. I'm part of the Ticats Audio Network, and you well know that. And there's a post-game show, but it does not take callers. And
right. Yeah.
I think what we're seeing is a lot of media, the Blue Jays included, the Maple Leafs included. They're going the way of the control the message.
Right.
The team has the broadcast. Is this the future of what we're seeing in sports?
Yeah, I think a little bit, and I don't blame them for doing so, because if they can, tell their narrative the way they want to have it displayed, I think most teams would probably sign up for that. I don't know too many individuals who like criticism or like to hear from fans who go just a little bit overboard, because let's be honest, we have that on the fifth quarter as well. They want to fire someone every week, and in professional sports, it's just not attainable. It's not achievable. And if you did so, your franchise would be a laughing stock, right? Like, who would want to work for an organization that's firing someone every other week? So
that's fandom, though.
Well, that is fandom, absolutely. I mean, and that's what part of being a fan is all about, is to have your opinion, but that's okay. I mean, I encourage that. But I get controlling the message, and I understand, even with today's athletes, I think more than ever, they're a lot more careful on what they say. They don't want to provide, and this, sometimes we get the exception, but they don't want to provide bulletin board material. They don't want to put their brand, the franchise, in a bad light. So they're extremely careful on what they say, how they say it, or sometimes even, who they talk to. But it's unfortunate, because I think years ago, fans got a little more authenticity from their athletes and from their franchises, who are, I think, better equipped or just had thicker skin in terms of receiving that criticism. And I think criticism's okay. Criticism, I think, makes you better, as long as it's constructive and, is balanced, and you kind of, understand where they're coming from.
It's one of the beauties of your show, though, is that there is the zaniest, the wildest, most outlandish. Can we trade Taylor Powell for Nathan York? Nathan Rourke, I'll hang up. Right? Like what? What's wrong with you? You know what I mean? And like, fire this person. Fire the owner doesn't care. What are you talking about? The owner doesn't care. It's good when the place is packed, and when we remember it. I was thinking about the Edmonton playoff game, that East Final, when they did the blackout.
Right.
It was beautiful.
Yes.
Brandon Banks made that catch against the Sun, whatever, and the place was rammed. And I mean, Tiger Town was rocking. I think about the Grey Cup not long ago. Ackland, catch the ball, please. Like, imagine what we would have been like, how happy we would have been, and what that does for the community. Right, what it does for CHML, what it does for for the Spectator. Of course, my station here at CHCH. We're all part of this, and sports, for whatever reason. Well, I love it so much, and I think why you love it so much, it can just band people together. Yeah,
it brings people together like no other. I mean, what other entity would you have millions of people watching on a weekly basis? Television shows, whether it's a drama or a comedy, can do that. But from a sporting perspective, we just had the Olympics. We're going to have the Paralympics. The Super Bowl, the Grey Cup. These huge sporting events attract so many people that have a passion about it like they don't have for anything else. It's unbelievable. You can like cooking, but the passion about cheering for the Ticats is going to usurp that other, that passion they have for cooking. So it's amazing, in times of, I always say this, I'm a Leafs fan, I'm a Ticats fan, two franchises that have that won in a long time. The valleys are really low, but I'll say this, that when you get those peaks, when you get those championship runs, when you get those playoff appearances, that makes, I think, the suffering that much more worthwhile, because now you're being rewarded for all the down times.
You don't have to answer this question, but I will ask it. Okay. It can't be long before you're back on a mainstream TV, radio, whatever. Do you see that being sooner than later?
I'll say this. I'm keeping all my options open. I have a number of people reach out over the last week, which has been absolutely tremendous. The number of people who have kind of texted me or messaged me or hit me up on social media, it's been overwhelming at times. And, I was, early on in the, the recovery process, if you will, there was a couple of moments where I was getting choked up at people kind of, saying, hey, we listen to you all the time. You were fantastic. It was part of our daily routine. I think that's kind of what I miss most about it, is just having that routine and talking to individuals on a day-to-day basis. And yeah, I see myself doing something, and maybe a number of things. I just don't know what that is. But again, keeping the options open and just ready for the new challenge.
Well, I can say this, Rick, and I'll say this just personally, because you've heard from other people. And I would always consider you a friend, but I'll look on a technical business side of things. Right. You're an outstanding broadcaster.
Thanks.
You do news. You do sports. You could report. You can host. I'd love to write your resume. Right?
I was working on it the other day.
No, seriously, you're an outstanding broadcaster, and that's why I asked you that question there, because I don't see it being long. I admire what you do and how you've done it over the years and the time that we've gotten to know each other. And I can just wish you the best of luck. And I can't wait to see some type of announcement that you're wherever you're going to be doing whatever, because you're going to do it damn good.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Really?
It's been a remarkable ride. I don't think the ride is over yet. There's a couple more twists and turns, I'm sure, but I've had a blast at CHML. There are absolutely no regrets. As you mentioned, a number of things that I got to do, and so many more in terms of having fun with individuals in the community, having fun within that radio station, and I think making an impact, not only myself, but everyone at the radio station, making an impact in this community. We're going to miss it. We're going to miss chatting with Hamiltonians and hearing about their views and opinions, but it was a great ride.
And yet you smile.
Yes, and yet I am smiling.
Thanks for joining us,
You got
it. That's your Sportsline podcast for the day. And he's just seen and heard. We love talking sports, especially with people that have all kinds of passion for the community and what we do in terms of this business. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event to promote the Sportsline Podcast, do want to hear from you. Please hit that thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. Share. If you got something to say, please comment. We love good or bad. For the wonderful people that make the Sportsline Podcast possible, thank you so very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.